Greetings, friends, and welcome back to Eturian Archives. My name is Mac, and I'm your guide to the world of Eturia, my original tabletop setting. Here, we gather and explore the different corners of the world, and today we have something special in mind. Last time on the Archives, we spoke of the Dragon Lords, and their immense influence on the world. So today, we're going to shift focus away from the northern lands, and see what the Mythic Age had to offer those that were in the eastern lands known as Sunnerlin. Enjoy. Far from Valdmark and its towering forest of ironwood and silver-misted mountains is a place of scorching sand and stone, of surging oceans, dense, sun-kissed savannas. Sunnerlin is a hard land of extremes, with primal beasts of exceptional cunning, and many that live there find that they have their business just staying alive to be a great deal of the work that goes into their day-to-day existence. Water and sun, the two dominant elements here, are in constant warfare, as the people of Sunnerlin cull life from the oases and rich oceans that surround this brutal landscape. Dry jungle gives way to plains and rolling expanses that eventually dry to true deserts, as only the very clever, or very sturdy, last long in the wilds here. But there was a time when this was not so, where more magic and more bounty poured forth across Sunnerlin than almost anywhere else on the face of Eturia. During the earliest portion of the Mythic Age, when the various planes of existence were still settling into the shape they would later hold to the current day, there was a swell of elemental power across all of Eturia. When the barriers between realms began to rise, much of that raw energy was trapped in the Prime Plane. This enriched the world with a newfound level of magic, arcane magic, the power of sorcerers and dragons. It was in Sunnerlin where this had the most profound effect, here that the Djinn first formed. Elementals, as they are known, are creatures of the purest kind. Living fire, swirling, playful water, great shambling mounds of stone, and darting, lethal blasts of hurricane wind. But for all their strength and purity, elementals are without ambition, drive, and lack much of the personality that other peoples have. The Djinn that came into the world of Eturia were something else entirely. While some historians have theorized that they existed fully formed as a people outside the Prime Plane and merely migrated during the Great Turmoil, it has been suggested that perhaps it was something in Eturia itself that changed them, offering them new, exciting forms and magic for them to master. Some even claim that they were not elemental in nature at all, but instead some kind of early demonic being. Regardless of their roots, the Djinn were a force unrivaled in their part of the world, while the Dragon Lords held sway in their immense strength and auras that inspired terror and awe. The Djinn were beings of pure magic. It has been written that a true Djinn could do immense feats of magic without exhausting any of its strength or energy. That with their raw talent, arcane magic came to them as easily as a fish moving through water, effortless and incredible. In the Mythic Age, the study of arcana was not what it would be later on, and instead most practitioners had to struggle to find any foothold with this raw and untamed spellwork. The Djinn seemed to innately master great works of magic with ease, and with it they formed incredible displays of power. From a landscape of sand and rock, massive cities and spires bloomed out of thin air. Sapphire stone streets, pools of cool restorative water. A Djinn in its full power could look at nothing, and in an afternoon's work, dream into existence a wonder. It became clear to their kind that even the lowliest among them were leagues ahead of these other creatures of Eturia. In time, the Djinn gathered, and under the power of their great lady, the Djinn Imperium was born. Codes of conduct were soon established, as the Djinn developed their own society. Courts of Djinn, their servants and chosen ones, were soon brought to fill the great cities of spun glass and magic that they had formed of their own will, some of which were said to float freely in the air, pushed along like stars gleaming on the desert surface of Sunnerlin. The Djinn established this all in a way to bring an air of play to everything that they did. Leaving themselves without rules seemed poor sport, and so the free-flying enchanters would begin to concern themselves with the coming and goings of others. With all the other races at their beck and call, the Djinn began to find new sport, new game. Some would do so by trying to outdo one another, creating ever more marvelous magical forms, or fashioning servants of exceptional skill. In their opulent towers, cities, and palaces, the Djinn ruled with incredible ability and a childlike freedom. Of course, not all were pleased by this. The Dragon Lords and others at the time looked nervously to the east, for fear that one day the games of the Djinn would grow tiresome, that they might turn their eyes to new, fertile lands. In truth, some Djinn were equally concerned with the other great powers, not because they believed for a moment that they could be overtaken, but simply that such creatures ought to know their place. A cold war of sorts existed in this time, none of the Djinn or the other great lords elsewhere in the world willing to strike the first blow. A game of intel, cat and mouse, spies, and a nervous crackling energy built between the great states. Had the Djinn only been more aware, they may have realized that for all of their strength and beauty, the real threat lay far, far closer to home. It was the Djinn trickster, Halan, that played a small but crucial moment in the history of not only his people, but many, many others. Halan, by all accounts, was a courtless Djinn trickster. While he frustrated some of his kind with his lack of drive and commitment to the Djinn Imperium, it was said that the great lady herself had a soft spot for this free and unfettered, charming being. Perhaps it was because she was reminded of how the Djinn were in those earliest days, flying hither and thither, visiting upon the world as agents of change and wonder. Perhaps that was why she tolerated Halan so. Drinking and pilfering from the homes and palaces of other Djinn, Halan was known for his clever use of magic and ability to embarrass those that often were too stuffy for his taste. It was in the 1200th birthday of a Djinn lady, an auspicious year by Djinn counting, that Halan made sport of her husbands. Fashioning a spell of binding, Halan had found a way to suspend all of a Djinn's magic to his delight in small objects. The simplicity of the spell was slumbering at its best, and Halan crowed with shining delight as one by one he captured the husbands of the Djinn lady. One in a glass decanter, another in a clockwork toy, even a humble oil lamp. He gathered them up and trapped them with but a trickle of magic and their names whispered upon the warm wind. The Djinn lady was not amused to find her husbands being offered up as her birthday gifts, though the court laughed at the brashness of the young Djinn Halan. It was another set of eyes that saw this and marveled, however. The fallen servants, of which there were many, saw with awe that the power of the Djinn could be fashioned and stoppered. They could be held. They could be controlled. They could be trapped. Trapped as the fallen felt. What began as a simple trick was soon stolen by the fallen and others that felt crushed under the might of the Djinn. For though the Djinn were indeed powerful, the truth was that they were never terribly numerous. Uprisings began in earnest as Djinn servants turned on their masters, the most cunning among them learning a semblance of what Halan had done, and with that knowledge fashioned trapped objects that could bind and swallow a Djinn whole. All a Djinn need do was lay hand upon it unexpectedly, and then, trapped within. Halan's gift, as it became known, formed the very basis of the legends of Djinn within bottles and magic rings that holds to the tales of Eturia to this day. The Djinn, of course, fought back, but it was a battle that they had never expected, could never have expected. A great armed insurgents began to push up from within their own people, and countless of their own kind were suddenly nowhere to be found. Hidden, buried, some hurled into the very sea and vanished from the face of Eturia. The Fallen had claimed the land of Sunnerlin for their own, and with an iron grip they swore to hold fast to this newfound freedom. That no Fallen would ever be made lesser to others ever again. That no great master would step on their throat as they had had for so long. The Imperium scattered. The Empire of the Fallen rose to build within its place something that holds fast to the world even now. And what of the Djinn? Many went into hiding, vanishing from this plane. Others masked who they were, what they were, and simply faded back into the world. Others fought, many were killed, and in time their influence faded. Now, in the world that is, true Djinn are all but gone. The binding spell saw to that, a tale warning of unintended consequences and the turning wheel of fate. Djinn ruins still exist, places where their power might still yet burn, treasures long left hidden, relics that hum with whispers of that bygone time, all scattered across the blasted landscape of Sunnerlin, as the Fallen forge their empire into an ever keener blade. And of course, there are still those tales that persist, that one need only find one of those little trinkets to find some of the old magic. A ring that is warm to the touch, a bottle that seems too heavy for itself, a lamp that gleams strangely in starlight, a gift such as the one that Halan gave all those ages ago. As always, thanks for listening. I'm Mac with Eturian Archives, and I'll see you all next time.